Hello, Scrafters. I thought I would put together a couple of videos that just show pretty standard opening builds for Terran, Protoss and Zerg, just so that you could kind of have a look at those and see an option for how to start the game off. These aren't necessarily cheesy builds, they're not necessarily focused on any one sort of style in particular. It's just a fairly standard sort of get you up and running style build with a reasonably solid economy and maybe put some pressure on your opponent early. So I'll play this replay where I have just set up a custom game against the AI just so I can show you what's going on. And in this one, obviously, Terran. So, you start the game with 15 supply and you're already at 13 supply. So what I tend to do is send the first worker that's been built by the command center out to build a supply depot. As Terran, you can lower and raise supply depots, so it's pretty common to build your first supply depot at the top of your ramp so that you can seal this off with buildings. You can open and close the supply depots to let your own units in and out, but it does mean that nothing from your opponent can get into your base. Now notice that you're momentarily supply blocked even using that first SCV to build a supply depot, but as soon as it finishes up you've got enough minerals to start building an SCV, and you've also got enough minerals to start building your barracks. So again, the placement of the barracks is going to be such that we're going to be able to seal this ramp off completely. That is particularly useful to do when you're against Zerg. If I look over here, with the barracks sort of a quarter to halfway done, you've got plenty of minerals to start a refinery. If I look at the minerals I'm banking here, at this stage you've got choices. If you were going to be aggressive, you could throw down a second barracks. This is quite an easily defensible map, so I've chosen to put down another command center while this first barracks is building. As soon as that barracks finishes, I've got enough minerals to build another supply depot. If you look, I'm at 21 of 23, so by the time this finishes I am going to need the extra supply, and I can start to build a marine as well. The gas is finished up, and as soon as that finishes up, put another 2 workers in it, get that mine in for you. The other thing to do once your barracks is finished is to turn your command center into an orbital command. That's so standard that you're missing out if you don't do that. So as you can see, this supply depot can be lifted or lowered, and in that case I lowered it to allow my SCV to get back in. I've got this marine out the front. I've just put him on patrol so that anything that tries to get into my base to have a look around is going to be chased away by this marine. The other thing I've done here is I've built a tech lab onto this barracks. The tech lab gives you access to these 3 upgrades, and this one, stim, and this one are kind of absolutely crucial. So as soon as I've got enough gas, I'll be starting the stim pack research. With that in mind, you can see that I've got my second refinery done, and as soon as that finishes I get workers transferred into that. You'll notice that throughout this whole time I've never stopped building SCVs. SCV production should be reasonably continuous. You don't really stop building SCVs until you've got 2 or 3 fully saturated bases up and mining. So I've built, I've got my barracks, and it's beginning to produce marines. I've also built this factory, and the first thing I'm building out of the factory here is a widow mine. I'm also, once the factory is finished, I'm building a starport, and that is going to give me the ability to build medevacs. Those medevacs have a double function. One, they heal your units, so if you use Stimpack, it makes things move faster and shoot faster, but it also does them damage. So to use Stimpack effectively, you need to have medevacs. The other thing you can do with a medevac is you can load units into it and you can fly them into places. Down at the bottom here I've built an engineering bay. That not only enables upgrades, and as you can see I'm upgrading weapons. It also means that you can build turrets, and see that I've chosen to build a missile turret in my mineral line. I know that I'm against Protoss here, and Protoss do like to fly oracles and the like into your mineral line in the early game. So having a turret there will chase away any flying units that come in to try and have a pop. It also has the advantage that, you know, if the Protoss decides to build something like Dark Templars, cloaked units, and send them into your mineral line, this acts as a detector. So my medevac is up, and you can see I've loaded in this Widowman. And what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to throw some Marines into the medevac as well, get that fella, and I'm going to go and see if I can get some something done with this medevac just to annoy and slow down my opponent. While that's happening, you know, the medevac I'm going to send across the map, it is hopefully going to do a little bit of damage, and it's going to buy me a little bit of time so that I can concentrate on teching up at home. So at this point of the game, this is where I wanted to get you up to, basically. When you get to here, now you've got choices. You've got some money in the bank. You could expand down here and get a third base up and running. You could decide, as I've done, to put down an extra 4 barracks and just start pumping out units. You've got choices. You know, you've got your engineering bay ready for upgrades. +1 attack is just finished in time for this medevac drop, so hopefully it can get some extra damage done. You can see how this works. You drop the Widow Mine, and the first thing you do is burrow that Widow Mine. Get a little bit of damage done with these Marines if you can, but ultimately keep the medevac alive. You don't want to sacrifice the medevac and leave this Widow Mine in the mineral line, and it's just such a pain. While it's burrowed, it can't be detected, so your opponent needs to build some sort of detection in order to get rid of this. And in the meantime, look, 9 kills on that. That's a lot of worker damage done. So this has served its function. At this point, I could bring that home, and that wouldn't be an issue. Over at home, I'm starting to build siege tanks. I'm starting to build more medevacs. I've got enough money to throw down and expand here. You know, everything's looking pretty good. This is now set up for a convincing win. Let me just pause it there. You know, I'm in good shape at this point. I've got this base is saturated for mineral mining, so the next step would be to put some gas geysers down there, some refineries. Get these SCVs back to work immediately. You can see that I'm building tech labs on all of these barracks. So I've got a couple with reactors, a couple with tech labs. That is going to mean if you have a tech lab on a barracks, it enables you to build marauders, not just Marines. So I'll have 3 barracks with tech labs, so I can be building marauders 3 at a time. The barracks with reactors can churn out 2 Marines at a time. So, you know, I'll have in total there's 6 barracks, 2 of which will have reactors. You know, so that's going to be a reasonable amount of output. That's going to be 5 Marines at a time, 3 Marauders at a time. So I should be able to spend my money pretty effectively. I'm going to have 2 fully mining bases with an option to throw down a third, or to simply just lean on the Marauder Marine button, get out as many medevacs as I can, and march across the map and do some damage. Meanwhile, in my opponent's base, you know, this Widow Mine up to 13 kills is just being annoying. It's disrupted what my opponent wants to do. It's disrupted any plans that they've got. It's slowed down their economy. So, you know, that's the kind of opening that puts you in a pretty strong position. Now, I won't claim that I've played it flawlessly or anything like that, but you're in a strong position if you get to this point where 6.5 minutes in, you know, 2 saturated bases, enough money to throw down a third, enough production facilities to spend the money that 3 bases would bring in. So, you know, next steps from here, continue upgrading. You'd need to build an armory as well, so that you can get further than +1. I'd, you know, probably build a second starport or a reactor on this one so I can get medevacs out 2 at a time. And then I'd probably go and march across the map and do my opponent in, to be honest. So yeah, so hopefully that's been, you know, slightly helpful. Hopefully it's given you some food for thought in terms of what sort of builds that you can do yourself as Terran. There we go, the double gas going down, the expand going down. Yeah, so feel free to steal this build or use some aspects of it to guide your own build. And I think I'll go and make a similar video for Protoss now. GG.